I'm going to say something that might feel strange coming from someone who's spent decades studying the markets. I don't think most traders have a trading problem. I think they have a trust problem. A trust yourself problem. They've been wrong before publicly, painfully, expensively, and so something deep inside them starts whispering, what if you're wrong again? What if you lose again? What if you just can't? And from that whisper, an entire identity gets built. Not a trader, a person afraid to be a trader. That's what this video is really about. And I want you to stay with me here because what I'm going to share with you over the next 35 minutes is not another strategy. It is not a new indicator or a new pattern or a new way to read the chart. I've spent my entire professional life sitting across from traders, some brand new, some with decades of experience, and the problem is never where they think it is. They come to me pointing at the market, at the news, at their broker's platform, at bad luck, and I listen and I nod, and then I say, let's go a little deeper than that, because the market is not the mystery here. You are. I know that sounds uncomfortable. Maybe it even sounds a little unfair. You've put in the time. You've read the books. You've watched the videos. You've studied the setups. You know what a valid trade looks like. And still something goes wrong. Still, you hesitate when you should act, or act when you should wait. Still, you hold a losing trade past your stop because some part of you just cannot accept that you were wrong. Still, you cut a winner short because the fear of giving back the gain is louder than the evidence on the chart. And after all of that, after the studying and the discipline and the late nights, you start to wonder if maybe you're just not built for this. Maybe some people have it and some people don't. I want to offer you a completely different interpretation, one that has given more relief to more traders than any system I've ever seen. Here it is. You are not failing because you are inadequate. You are struggling because you are a human being who was never taught how to operate inside a probabilistic environment. That's not a character flaw. That's a design mismatch. And design mismatches can be corrected. That's the promise of this conversation. The biggest myth, the one that quietly destroys more trading accounts than any market event I can name, is the belief that more information, more analysis, more certainty leads to better trading. It doesn't. In the hands of a fear-based mind, more information leads to more paralysis, more second-guessing, more reasons not to act. The best traders in the world are not the ones with the most data. They are the ones with the most disciplined relationship with uncertainty. And those two things are not the same, and the difference between them is the entire game. So before I give you frameworks and principles, and I will give you those, I want to take you somewhere first. I want you to understand these truths, not just with your head, but with something deeper. Because the mind that created your trading problems cannot think its way out of them using the same tools. You have to feel what I'm pointing at. So let's go there together. I want you to imagine a commercial airline pilot. They're flying at 38,000 feet, and a severe storm has moved into their path. You can hear the turbulence if you're a passenger, the rattling of the overhead compartments, the gasps, the white-knuckled grip on the armrests. The plane drops, shudders, rises again. People are scared, really scared. And then zoom in on the cockpit. The pilot's hands are steady, not shaking, not gripping the controls with desperate force. Steady. And I want you to ask yourself why. Because the storm is real. The danger is real. The pilot is human, with a nervous system just like yours and mine. So, why are their hands steady when everyone else on that plane is terrified? It's not because they don't feel anything. It's not because they're somehow above fear. It's because their training has done something remarkable. It has built a structure inside their mind that separates the raw information, altitude, pressure, wind shear, instrument readings from the emotional noise that the situation naturally generates. They've flown in storms before. They've trained in simulators that recreate every worst-case scenario. And through that repetition, through that deliberate practice, they've built something I think of as an inner cockpit, a mental space where the information comes in clean, gets processed clearly, and produces a response, not a reaction. A response. Now here's the thing about that pilot. They do not know exactly where the next air pocket is going to be. They cannot predict with certainty whether the turbulence will last 3 minutes or 30. They don't have a crystal ball. What they have is something far more powerful, a process. They trust their instruments. They trust their training. They know what to do when certain conditions arise. And they execute that process without needing to know how the story ends. That's the difference. Not certainty, not prediction, process, and the trust to follow it. This is what the best traders do. Not because they have no emotions, they absolutely do, but because their relationship to uncertainty has been trained. They look at a setup, they consult their instruments, their method, their defined edge, their rules, and they execute. Without needing to know what happens next, without needing the market to confirm that they're smart or capable or worthy. The storm is always real in trading. Every open position is a storm, but the discipline is the cockpit. And you cannot fly that plane well if you keep abandoning the cockpit to go manage the passengers, and the passengers, in this case, are your fears. I want to ask you something now. When was the last time you actually trusted yourself? Not hoped, not wished, not talked yourself into something. Actually trusted the decision you were making the way a pilot trusts the instrument panel? If that feels like a long time ago or maybe like something that's never quite happened, then stay with me. Because here's what I've learned. You cannot build that trust through willpower. You cannot command yourself to feel confident. Trust is built through a specific kind of understanding, and that understanding is what I'm building toward right now. Let me take you somewhere else. Picture a casino, not from the perspective of someone gambling, from the perspective of the owner. The casino floor is full of people at any given hour of the night. Someone at the roulette wheel wins big and the crowd cheers. Someone at the slot machines pulls the lever for the 200th time and walks away empty. The blackjack table swings back and forth. Players win, players lose, the cards fall the way they fall. And the casino owner is somewhere watching all of this. Do you think they're scared? Do you think they're nervous about the person who just hit a big number on the roulette wheel? Do you think they're chasing their losses when a lucky run cleans out a table for 20 minutes? No, they're not afraid. Not even slightly. And the real reason, is something that once you understand it, you will never see trading the same way again. The casino owner does not think in individual outcomes. They think in series. They know, with mathematical certainty, that across thousands and thousands of plays, the edge built into every game will express itself. Any single spin of the roulette wheel is completely unpredictable. The casino cannot tell you what number is going to come up next. Nobody can. But across 10,000 spins, the mathematics becomes as reliable as gravity. The edge is built in. It doesn't require the casino owner to know what happens next. It only requires that the conditions stay consistent, that the game keeps being played, that the rules don't change, and that the casino stays open. That's it. The math does the rest. Now, I want you to contrast that with how the average trader operates. They take a trade, maybe it sets up beautifully exactly the pattern they've been studying, exactly the conditions their edge requires, and then it loses. The stop gets hit. And something happens in that moment that is completely understandable and completely devastating at the same time. They take it personally, they feel betrayed, somehow like the market looked them in the eye and chose to humiliate them. And so they adjust, they tweak the strategy. They add a filter, or they remove one, or they decide this particular pattern doesn't work anymore. They take another trade, this one wins, they feel vindicated, they loosen the rules a little, take a bigger position next time. And on it goes, constant adjustment, constant reaction, constant recalibration of the system based on individual outcomes. And here is the tragedy. They are acting like a casino owner who, after one losing night, tears up the roulette wheel and replaces it with dice. Your edge does not guarantee any single outcome. That is not what an edge is. An edge is a tendency, a lean in one direction across a large sample of trades. Any individual trade from your edge can win or lose. The distribution of wins and losses is essentially random at the individual level. But across many trades, if you execute consistently, if you keep the conditions stable, if you don't rebuild the system every time the roulette wheel comes up the wrong number, the edge will express itself in your results. This is not philosophy. This is mathematics. And the only thing standing between you and that mathematical reality is the emotional interference you introduce every time you deviate from the plan. Every time you don't take the trade because the last one lost. Every time you hold too long because this one has to come back. Every time you add to a loser because surely now it will turn. Every single one of those deviations is you, not the market you, reaching into the game and rigging it against yourself. And here's the thing that I find most heartbreaking about this. The trader doing all of this is not stupid, not undisciplined in the rest of their life, not reckless or careless. They are doing what any intelligent, feeling human being does when they've been hurt. They're trying to protect themselves. The problem is that the protection strategy avoid, adjust, react is perfectly designed for a world with reliable cause and effect, and it is catastrophically wrong for a world governed by probability distributions. You were built for certainty. The market deals in probability, and nobody sat you down and told you that was the mismatch. Nobody explained that your instincts, the very instincts that keep you safe in the rest of your life, are working against you in this specific environment. There's one more image I want to leave with you before we move into the principles. Think of your belief system, the entire architecture of what you believe about yourself, about risk, about money, about whether you deserve to succeed as a sculpture, not a finished statue, a working sculpture, shaped by the hands of every experience you've ever had, every win that told you you're capable, every loss that told you to be careful, every embarrassing trade you'd rather forget, every moment someone doubted you or you doubted yourself. All of those experiences have left impressions, the way hands leave impressions in clay. And now, when you sit down to trade, you aren't just looking at a chart. You're looking at that chart through the sculpture, through all those old impressions, through the memory of pain and the anticipation of more. The market sends pure, neutral information. Price moved here, volume appeared there, a level held or it didn't. That information is clean. But you receive it through the filter of everything that shaped you. And the only way to receive the information more clearly, the only way to see the market as it actually is to first understand what's in the sculpture. To look at it honestly, without judgment, and ask, what hands shaped this? What did they teach me that might not be true anymore? Now we've arrived at the architecture. I want to give you 7 core truths, not theories, not motivational ideas, but structural realities about how the mind interacts with probability. These are things I've been teaching and refining for decades. And I want to be clear, understanding them is not the same as living inside them. But understanding is where it starts. The first truth is this: the market has no memory of you. None. It does not know your name. It does not know what happened in your last trade, or your last 50 trades, or your whole career. Every tick of price is simply the aggregate expression of millions of other participants making decisions based on their own goals, their own fears, their own analysis, and not one of them is thinking about you. When you take a loss, the market did not do something to you. It simply moved. Your pain is real. I'm not diminishing that, but the market did not create the pain. Your interpretation of the movement created it. The meaning you assigned to it created it. And that distinction is more important than it might seem. Because here's what happens when you forget it. You start treating the market like a person, a difficult, unpredictable, sometimes malicious person. You feel betrayed when it moves against you. You feel triumphant when it goes your way, as though you outthought something that was trying to stop you. And both of those reactions, the betrayal and the triumph, are equally dangerous. Triumph produces overconfidence. Betrayal produces revenge trading. Neither serves the next decision. Neither helps you see the information clearly. The market is not your adversary. It is not your validator. It is not even your teacher in the way people sometimes say. It is simply a living aggregate of human intention, constantly shifting, utterly indifferent to any single one of us. The moment you stop taking it personally, something opens up. The noise quiets, the information gets cleaner. And you begin to see setups for what they actually are, conditions, not invitations. The second truth is this: you do not need to know what comes next to make money. This one is so counterintuitive that people often resist it the first time they hear it, because it feels like giving up. It feels like saying, just trade blindly, just flip a coin, it doesn't matter what you think. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the framing times of the question is wrong. The question most traders are asking is, what is going to happen? And they are trying to answer that question with enough certainty to justify entering a trade. But that question is unanswerable. Nobody knows what is going to happen. Not you, not the hedge funds, not the algorithms, not the analysts on television. Nobody. Every single trade is, at its core, a bet made under conditions of genuine uncertainty. And if you require certainty in order to act, you will never act consistently. You'll wait for the setup that feels perfect. And when the perfect feeling arrives, it's often already too late. And when it doesn't arrive, you sit on your hands while your edge plays out without you. The real question, the question that changes everything, is not what will happen, but what tends to happen across many occurrences of these conditions. And does that tendency give me an advantage if I exploit it consistently? That's an answerable question. That's a question your system can address. And once you've answered it honestly, your job isn't to predict. Your job is to position yourself inside the probability distribution and let the distribution work. You are not a forecaster, you are a probability navigator. And the moment that shift happens deeply, genuinely, in your bones and not just in your head, something that used to feel like pressure becomes something that feels almost like relief. The third truth is one of the most psychologically important and also one of the most misunderstood. Fear in trading does not come from the market. It comes from a belief, specifically the belief that the possible future loss means something terrible about you, that it is evidence of your inadequacy, your wrongness, your incompetence, your fundamental unsuitability for this pursuit. Strip away that belief, genuinely strip it away, and the same market information that once triggered terror becomes simply data. A price level to observe, an outcome to record, a data point in a series. Where do these beliefs come from? Almost always from earlier experiences of pain in trading or in life that your mind encoded as threats. Your brain is brilliantly designed for survival. When something hurts you, it learns. This situation caused pain. Avoid this situation. Create distance. Protect yourself. That learning mechanism has kept our species alive for hundreds of thousands of years, but it creates a very specific problem in a trading context. Because the brain cannot cleanly distinguish between a genuinely dangerous situation and one that merely resembles a past painful one, it fires the same warning signal either way. And in a probabilistic environment where past individual outcomes have no predictive power over future individual outcomes, those warning signals are almost always wrong. They're pulling from a library of memories that isn't relevant to this moment. They're telling you a story from the past while you're trying to read information in the present. And here is the paradox that I want you to really sit with. The act of being afraid of a loss makes the loss more likely. Not metaphorically, mechanically. Fear causes hesitation. Hesitation causes late entries. Late entries have worse risk-reward profiles. Worse risk-reward profiles mean your wins are smaller and your losses are relatively larger. And the results of those compromised trades then become new evidence that you should be even more afraid. It is a self-sealing loop, a trap that tightens the more you struggle against it. The fear is not protecting you. The fear is costing you, and it will keep costing you until you understand what it actually is. Not a signal from the market, but a signal that a belief is being activated. Your job, and this is real work, not easy work, is to learn to examine the belief underneath the fear. To ask, what do I think this loss will mean? And then to question whether that meaning is true. Now, I want to share with you 5 truths that I believe are the operating foundation of consistent trading. These are not affirmations you repeat in the mirror. They are beliefs, structural beliefs about how the market works that, when genuinely integrated into the way you see every trade, will change everything. I call them the 5 fundamental truths. And I'm going to go through each one slowly because they build on each other. The first fundamental truth is that anything can happen. Not that something bad might happen, anything. The market can gap through your stop overnight. A geopolitical event you never anticipated can move a price level that looked impenetrable for months. A single institutional order can reverse a trend that had been running for weeks. If you are not genuinely, deeply open to this, not just intellectually acknowledging it, but truly allowing for it in the way you size your positions and set your stops, then every unexpected outcome will feel like a betrayal rather than a natural feature of the environment you've chosen to work in. The market is not obligated to behave in ways that validate your analysis. Anything can happen. And when you really believe that when it stops being a disclaimer and starts being a lived reality, your whole relationship with the outcome of any single trade changes. The second fundamental truth is that you don't need to know what comes next to make money. We've been here already, let it land again, because it bears repeating. You don't need to know what comes next. Say that to yourself slowly. Feel what it's like to not need to know. Feel the pressure that releases when you stop requiring certainty as a condition for action. The third fundamental truth is that there is a random distribution between wins and losses for any given set of variables that define an edge. This is the one that confuses people the most, so I want to be precise. Random does not mean purposeless. It does not mean chaotic or unmanageable. What it means is that at the individual trade level, you cannot know whether this specific occurrence of your setup will produce a win or a loss. The outcome is genuinely unpredictable in isolation. But across a large enough series across 50 trades, 100 trades, 200 trades, the tendency embedded in your edge will express itself in the aggregate results. The law of large numbers is not a polite suggestion. It is one of the most reliable forces in mathematics. But it only works if you let it work. Every time you override your system based on a feeling, you are introducing a variable that the math cannot account for. You are corrupting the sample. You are, in a very literal sense, preventing your own edge from working. The fourth fundamental truth is that an edge is nothing more than an indication of a higher probability of one thing happening over another. Not a guarantee, not a certainty, a lean, a tendency. A statistical advantage that will not be visible in any single trade but will become unmistakably clear across a long series of trades properly executed. Most traders treat their edge as a prediction. They expect it to be right. And when it isn't right on a particular trade, they question the edge, or question themselves, or add new filters. A casino does not question the mathematics of roulette because one player got lucky on red 3 times in a row. The math is still the math. Your edge is still the edge. One bad trade proves nothing except that you are operating inside a probability distribution, which is exactly what you should be doing. And the fifth fundamental truth is perhaps the subtlest one. Every moment in the market is unique. The pattern you see today looks like the pattern from 8 months ago. The same formation, the same volume signature, maybe even the same time of day, but it is not the same. The participants are different, the context is different. The aggregate intention behind the current price action is different in ways that no chart can fully reveal. When you trade the current moment as though it is a replay of a past moment, when you let a previous outcome on a similar setup color your decision about this one, you are working with false data. You are navigating the present using a map drawn from the past, and the territory has changed. The market is always now. And to trade well is to be here, in this moment, with this information, without the weight of the last trade, without the shadow of the next one, just here, just now. The sixth truth I want to share is about identity, and it might be the most personally uncomfortable one. Consistent winners are not defined by their results. They're defined by their process. This sounds simple. It isn't, because most traders, consciously or not, have an identity structure that works something like this. A good trade means I am smart and capable. A bad trade means I am not. And when that structure is operating, every trade becomes an ego referendum. Every decision is loaded not just with financial risk, but with the risk of what the outcome will say about you as a person. And when the ego is on the line, you cannot trade objectively. You hold losers too long because closing the position would make the loss final, and the verdict on your worth would be official. You cut winners early because any win, however small, at least proves you weren't completely wrong. These are not trading errors in the usual sense. They are identity protection behaviors. They are the mind doing exactly what it was designed to do: preserve your sense of self in an environment where that preservation comes at a financial cost. The shift that consistent winners have made, and it is a genuine shift, not a performance, is that they define success entirely by process. Did I follow my plan? Did I execute my edge according to my rules? If the answer is yes, then the trade was a success, regardless of the outcome, because the outcome was never in their control. Only the execution was. And what you can control is all that matters. What you cannot control is, by definition, not your responsibility. I know how simple that sounds. I also know how hard it is to actually live inside it, especially after a painful loss. But that is the direction. That is the work. The seventh truth is one that touches something very human. There are two kinds of pain available to you as a trader: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. They are not the same, and you will experience one or the other. There is no path through trading that avoids both. The pain of discipline is the small, clean discomfort of following a rule you don't feel like following, taking the stop loss when your gut says it will come back, sitting on your hands when your edge isn't present, even though you're bored and the market is moving and something in you wants to be in it. Watching a trade you didn't take go exactly where you thought it would go. That pain is real. It stings. But it is contained, it is momentary, and it is administered by your own choice in service of something larger. The pain of regret is different in kind, not just in degree. It is the anguish of the blown account, the shame of the revenge trade that wiped out 2 weeks of careful work in 45 minutes. The haunting weight of the position you held past every rational exit because letting go felt like admitting failure. That pain doesn't stay in the trading session. It follows you home. It sits at dinner with you. It wakes you up at 3 in the morning. And worse than the financial damage it causes, it teaches you the wrong lesson. It says, you cannot be trusted. You are not capable of this. And those lessons, once installed, are extraordinarily hard to unlearn. Every time you choose discipline, you are making a vote, a real, physical, consequential vote for the version of yourself that can sustain this over the long run. Every time you avoid the pain of discipline, you are borrowing against your future self at a very high interest rate. Now here is where I want to make a turn with you, because I know what can happen at this point in a conversation like this one. Everything I've shared makes sense. It resonates. You're nodding, maybe taking notes, and then you go back to your trading platform and do exactly what you always did. Not because you didn't understand me, because understanding and being are two entirely different things. The distance between knowing a truth and living inside that truth is where most of the real work happens. And that work does not happen all at once. It happens in small, daily practices that slowly, quietly reshape the neural pathways, the actual physical architecture of your thinking. So I want to give you 3 places to start, not 10, not a system overhaul. 3 practices that you can begin today, and that will begin to build the inner cockpit I've been describing. The first practice is a trade journal, but not the kind most people keep. Most trade journals track what happened: entry price, exit price, profit or loss. What I want you to add is the interior record. After every trade win or loss, before you close the platform, write 3 sentences. First, what were you feeling before you entered? Not what the market was doing. What were you feeling? Nervous? Excited? Desperate to recover from the last trade? Overconfident from a string of winners? Second, what belief or story was running underneath that feeling? Third, after the trade closed, how does the outcome make you feel about yourself? Not about the strategy, about yourself. I know this sounds like therapy, not trading. I'd say the line between those two things is thinner than most people want to admit. Over weeks and months of this journal, you will begin to see patterns that no chart software can show you. You'll see the trade you took because you were bored, the one you avoided because the last one hurt, the one you held past your stop because your ego needed the vindication of being right. You will see your psychological fingerprints on every decision. And that visibility, just being able to see it clearly, begins to change it. You cannot reshape what you cannot see. This journal is your mirror. The second practice is something I want you to do before you ever open a chart. Define your edge in one honest sentence, not a description of your method. A genuine edge statement that captures what tends to happen across many occurrences of a specific set of conditions and why that tendency gives you a mathematical advantage if you exploit it consistently. Write that sentence, memorize it, and every single morning before you sit down to trade, say it out loud, not as a magic spell, as a reminder, a recalibration. You are reminding your nervous system before the noise of the market begins what you are actually doing here. You are not trying to be right. You are not trying to predict. You are executing a probabilistic edge across a series of trades, and today is one data point in that series. Nothing more and nothing less. This 60-second ritual will do more for your consistency than most things I can recommend, because it orients your mind before the fear has a chance to do so. The third practice is something I call the "what is true now" interrupt. Whenever you feel fear, hesitation, or the urge to deviate from your plan, stop. Take one slow breath and ask yourself, out loud if you can, what is objectively, actually true right now? Not what happened last time, not what might happen. What is true right now about this setup, this moment, this data? This is a grounding interrupt. It is designed to pull you out of the associative memory, the film reel of past trades your brain is replaying, and drop you back into the present, into the actual information in front of you. Fear lives almost entirely in the past and the future. It is almost never present in the actual now. When you return to now, this tick, this level, this candle, you will usually find that the information is cleaner and clearer than the fear suggested. Sometimes the information says, this isn't a valid setup. Good, that's a clear no. A clear no is infinitely better than a fear-based hesitation that leaves you paralyzed in front of a perfectly valid trade. None of these three practices require a faster computer or a bigger account or a different strategy. They require only one thing: a daily willingness to be honest with yourself. To look at who you are when you trade, not just what you trade. And that honesty practiced consistently, without judgment, over time, is the single most profitable habit I know. Let me bring us home now. I want to take you back to where we started. We began with a whisper, the one that says, what if you can't? What if you're not built for this? What if every loss is evidence of something broken inside you? And I want to answer that whisper directly, clearly, and finally. You are not broken. You have been operating in a probabilistic universe with a mind that was built for certainty, and nobody told you that was the mismatch. You were handed a set of instincts refined over thousands of years of human survival, and then dropped into an environment that requires something almost opposite: the ability to act decisively without certainty, to accept unknowable outcomes without being destabilized by them, to trust a process across a series of events without needing each individual